enough information with the public. Sharyl Attkisson with an in-depth look in this Project Immigration report.
The government has abruptly shut down operations at Fort Sill in Oklahoma and 2 other military bases that sheltered more than 7,700 minors the government refers to as unaccompanied alien children.
Thousands of the minors have been transferred to 150 shelters across the country, mostly group homes run by nonprofits. But try to find out exactly where, and the government won't answer. Not the public, not reporters, not even Congress.
All right, folks, we welcome you back to the Steve Malzberg Show. And joining us right now is Sharyl Attkisson, Emmy Award-winning journalist and former CBS News correspondent. And Sharyl, welcome back. Good to talk to you.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure. And this is pretty frightening stuff. The government won't answer questions about where these kids are. There's stories out about $761 million tab that it's going to cost the states and the localities to educate these kids wherever they are when they go to schools. What have you been able to find out, and what have you not been able to find out?
Well, one thing that they won't tell anybody, as I said in the story, including members of Congress who have an oversight duty to look at these sorts of things and are directly impacted, is where these shelters are, how many kids are going to what shelters, and what the contracts are. And another reason why that's important, in addition to the local impact, is the types of contracts that are being given to whom to do what work. For example, Senator Charles Grassley wrote a letter to Health and Human Services, which is administering this program, and questioned a reported plan to convert a Texas hotel into housing for these illegal immigrant minors using $50 million tax dollars, which Senator Grassley said worked out to $166,000 a year per child. And he didn't get an answer to his question from HHS about this contract, what it was going to do. The nonprofit that was supposedly working on the project walked away from it, citing negative backlash. But how many contracts do we not know about, and how are they being administered? It makes it impossible for communities to plan for it, and also for Congress to do its oversight responsibility if the government is not going to share this basic public information, which I think is unlawful under freedom of information laws. I believe this is, information we're entitled to.
You just took the question right out of my mouth. I was going to say, under what premise, under what guise, how are they getting away with, what are they claiming for denying this information, and where the heck? I know they're on vacation still until next week, but, Congress has to do something to get this information, don't they?
I guess, it's easy to be the outsider saying what you would do, but I feel as though if I were a member of Congress and I was not being given information, public information that impacted my constituents, I think I'd be on the doorstep of the federal agency demanding it be turned over. I mean, I think I would do something other than writing letters, asking questions, and sort of tossing up, shrugging your shoulders when you don't get the answers. Journalists, too, they don't seem curious about this by and large. I'm not sure why. But our option is we could file a lawsuit under freedom of information laws. But what the government understands, and what has been so often the case, not just under the Obama administration, but under several administrations, perhaps increasingly so under this one, they just don't answer the request. They wait for you to file a lawsuit, which most people won't do. They use taxpayer money defending the lawsuit, so there's no disincentive for them to fight the lawsuit. They can just drag it out. And eventually, if ordered to turn over documents, it's so far down the road that they've successfully obfuscated and delayed, which is the whole goal in the first place. And
certainly with the world events taking shape as they have, and really the short attention span of the 24-hour news cycle, when big events do happen, this is off the radar. Anyway, it was off the radar, to an extent when it should have been on the radar and still had opportunity to be on the radar. As you pointed out, journalists don't seem to be interested in this. And, I could tee up the softball question to you and say, gee, why do you think that is? But we both have an inkling, don't we?
I think there are complex reasons at play, and I used to produce newscasts in local news, so I have some experience doing that sort of thing. And I can only tell you that what I would do, and this isn't a political position, it's a public impact decision, I would have been leading newscasts most nights or many nights with the latest on this immigration crisis that's happening now. It doesn't mean you're for or against a particular action, but there's no denying it is A, a humanitarian crisis, which has been acknowledged by the government, and B, a crisis in a system that is not equipped with the infrastructure and has no money to process these immigrants the way they're coming in. So I think this is a huge issue. It's impacting so many people, and it's hard to explain why it's not on the front burner more often. I think it's on the front burner in the minds of many in the public. You just won't see as much coverage about it as perhaps it deserves.
All right, here's another issue, and let me ask you about this. Of course, you were so right on top of the Benghazi investigation and did such great work at CBS on that when you were allowed to do it. But we now have about, 11 or about a dozen missing commercial airliners that were in Libya. And now we have some tweets allegedly of terrorists posing with those planes and threatening to use them in the skies on 9/11. All I could say to that is, my God, and I really haven't been hearing too much about that either.
Well, and how can we be surprised that this has happened? It seems like we have not had our finger on the pulse of the developments in that part of the world for a long time. Seems as though the United States policy has been to address each thing that comes up as if it's its own separate and unique circumstance, when clearly there's just a huge movement that's interconnected. I think there's been more acknowledgement of that in the last few weeks than there had been in the last couple of years. But it's disturbing with the intelligence that we have, as much money as we pour into the system and as much latitude as we give our government to collect information, that we would be surprised that the jetliners are missing. I don't think they all went missing in one day. I don't have the details on that, but you would like to think we would have intelligence that would have alerted us to this much sooner, or alerted us to it perhaps even before it happened. Obviously, if that's indeed an accurate report, of huge concern.
Yeah, and it makes one wonder what precautions, not necessarily the FAA here in this country, although I'm not precluding that or ruling it out, but what precautions the world or that region will take over the skies, in anticipation of something on 9/11.
Good question.
Yeah, and sadly, it'll probably go unanswered until, God forbid, there's a catastrophe. Let me ask you, Paul Ryan on this show a couple of weeks ago, in answer to the revelation that the IRS, through their DOJ attorneys, had told Judicial Watch that we have all Lois Lerner's emails and just too much trouble for us to get them. That's going back to court. They'll have to explain that to a judge. But Paul Ryan promised. I said, are they going to get away with this? He said, no, they will not. We will keep digging and digging and digging and digging. Do you have confidence that that will be the case and that it will lead to some kind of justice, if you will, in this case?
Looking at it from, the 10,000-foot level, there's a strategy that seems to be employed, and it's not unique to the IRS case. It's again, delay, obfuscate, drizzle out bits of the truth in such small dribs and drabs that when it finally comes out, people are kind of numb to it. They think they've heard it before. So much time has passed that they consider it old news. And I'm afraid that's, the case with the IRS scandal as well. I think there are many important questions to be answered. There are some in Congress who will continue pounding away at it, but enough of them don't seem to have the will to use their authority in a way that would really get at the answers the way a court can. Sadly, a court can do more than Congress, it appears, when it comes to doing oversight, the branches of government on one another. So I don't know. I think there will be digging continuing to be done by members of Congress. Do I think any big revelation is going to come at the end of it, where we'll find out some high-ranking official or even mid-level official knew what when? I'm not sure. Let's think about it this way. If the emails weren't an accident, there's a possibility that they were lost through accident. If they were lost on purpose because what was in them was so damning that the government would rather take the heat for having destroyed them than for us to see what's in them,
that's pretty bad.
we'll never know what's in them.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Yeah, absolutely. Cheryl, great talking to you. Thank you. And folks, you could go to SharylAttkisson.com and read and view all of Sharyl's work. Appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. All right, folks. Hey, before we go, I want to catch you up. The results from our last poll are in. We wanted to know if you thought the police response in Ferguson was over-militarized. 60% of you said yes, the police were over-militarized. 21% of you said no, the police were not over-militarized. And 13% of you were not sure. And we would like your opinion again. Should the U.S. strike ISIS in Syria? Go to newsmax.com/poll. You can vote. We'll have the results for you later this week. Give Me 5 is next.